All right, so today we're diving into Druidry,
Okay.
and we're looking at the Druidry Handbook by John Michael Greer.
Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to be like the book for modern Druidry.
It's really one of the best.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it, so I'm really excited to dig into it.
Me too.
So for someone who maybe hasn't really explored this before,
Sure.
what exactly is Druidry?
So Druidry is basically a spiritual path that's centered all around nature.
Okay.
But what's really cool about Greer's book is that he makes it feel like a really living tradition. Like it's something that's still evolving,
So it's not just like a bunch of old rituals and stuff.
Right. It's not just stuck in the past.
Gotcha.
It's about connecting with nature in a really deep way.
Yeah.
And also understanding yourself better.
Okay.
And just living in a way that honors the earth.
I like that.
Yeah.
So the outline mentions something called the 3 triads.
Yes.
What are those all about?
The 3 triads are the foundation of Greer's whole approach to Druidry.
Okay.
They represent 3 different paths. The earth path,
Okay.
the sun path, and the moon path.
Oh, interesting.
But the important thing is that they're all intertwined.
Okay.
They all weave together.
So it's not like you pick one path.
Right.
You have to kind of do all 3.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the earth path.
Okay, so the earth path is all about connecting with nature.
Okay.
But I mean really connecting with it. Greer goes beyond just appreciating how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
He talks about ecological spirituality.
Ish.
It's about becoming aware of the natural cycles,
Okay.
understanding how ecosystems work,
Uh-huh.
and honestly, just living in a way that's sustainable.
I like that a lot. It's
Yeah.
it's not just about feeling connected to nature.
Right.
It's about taking action.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so Greer actually gives a lot of really practical advice.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, in the book, he has all these exercises
Oh, cool.
to help you become more in tune with nature.
What kind of things?
Well, things like observing the seasonal changes.
Oh.
Or learning how to identify the plants and animals in your area. Even just noticing how the light changes throughout the day.
Interesting.
It's all about bringing that awareness of nature into your everyday life.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the sun path?
Okay, so the sun path is all about knowledge and understanding.
Okay.
It gets into stuff like Druidic cosmology and myth and symbolism,
Oh, wow.
which are all super fascinating.
I bet.
But one of the key things about the sun path is something called a wheel of the year.
The wheel of the year.
Yes. Have you heard of that?
I feel like I've heard that term before.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what it is.
Okay, so basically it's a cycle of 8 festivals
Okay.
that mark the turning points of the year. So the solstices and the equinoxes and the points in between.
Oh, I see.
You've probably heard of some of them like Samhain or Beltane.
I have heard those names,
Yeah.
but I definitely need a refresher on what they actually mean.
Right. Well, each festival has its own special energy and symbolism,
Okay.
but they're all about connecting us to those natural rhythms of the earth.
I see.
For example, Samhain is celebrated around October 31st.
Okay.
And it's a time to honor your ancestors
Hmm.
and reflect on the cycle of life and death.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got connecting with nature through the earth path.
Right.
And then we've got gaining knowledge through the sun path.
Uh-huh.
What about the moon path?
Okay, so the moon path is where we get into the more magical side of Druidry.
Oh, okay. This is what I've been waiting for.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So Greer actually gives instructions on how to do rituals.
Does he really?
Yeah, things like building altars or
Yeah.
invoking the elements. It makes it feel really real and practical,
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, what does Greer actually think about magic?
That's a good question.
Because that word can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Right. Well, he has a really interesting perspective on it.
Okay.
He's really clear that it's not about controlling things
Okay.
or trying to bend the world to your will.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about working with the natural forces and the spiritual forces.
Okay.
It's a tool for personal growth and transformation.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's not about casting spells to get what you want.
No, not really.
It's more about aligning yourself with the energy of the universe or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about these 3 paths.
Yeah.
The earth path, the sun path, and the moon path.
Uh-huh.
Do they all work separately, or are they somehow
Oh,
connected?
they're definitely connected.
Okay.
Greer really emphasizes that the 3 paths are intertwined and they support each other.
Okay.
Like you can't really walk one path fully without the others. It's about finding that balance between all three.
Okay, so it's like they're braided together, just like we were saying earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we've got connecting with nature, gaining knowledge, and exploring magic.
Right.
What else kind of ties all this together? Like, what are some of the big ideas that run through the whole book?
Well, you're probably not surprised to hear that harmony with nature is a huge theme.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like woven into every aspect of Druidry as Greer presents it. But it's not just about passively appreciating nature.
Okay.
It's about actively engaging with it.
Right.
Learning about its cycles.
Yeah.
And like making choices that promote balance.
Okay, so not just saying I love nature, but actually living in a way that shows it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, and Greer gives some really specific examples.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, like he talks about being more aware of where your food comes from.
Okay.
Reducing your ecological footprint. And even supporting local conservation efforts.
That's great.
Yeah, he really brings it down to a personal level.
Yeah,
You know?
I like that.
Yeah,
It's like putting your money where your mouth is.
exactly.
But in a nice way.
Yes, in a gentle, encouraging way.
Yeah, cool.
And that actually leads us to another big idea in the book.
Okay.
Personal responsibility.
Hmm.
Greer believes that Druidry calls for a really deep sense of accountability.
Hmm.
Not just for your spiritual practices,
Okay.
but for your impact on the world around you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's about recognizing that we're part of nature, not separate from it,
Right.
and that our choices have consequences.
Yeah. I really like that emphasis on like action and responsibility. It feels very relevant to like everything going on in the world right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this actually brings us to another key theme,
Okay.
ecological wisdom.
Interesting.
So Greer makes it clear that Druidry isn't just about having these like mystical experiences. It's also about gaining real knowledge about the natural world. Like understanding how ecosystems work.
Right.
And learning how to live sustainably.
So it's combining spiritual practice with scientific understanding.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
He sees those two things as like complementary,
Yeah.
not contradictory. He encourages you to connect with nature on a spiritual level,
Okay.
but also to understand it on a practical level.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got harmony with nature,
Right.
personal responsibility,
Uh-huh.
ecological wisdom.
Yes.
I feel like I'm starting to get like the depth of what Greer's talking about here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that stands out to you?
Well, it all kind of comes back to the three triads
Okay.
and how they're all intertwined. Like Greer really emphasizes that you can't truly connect with nature.
So that's the earth path.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Without understanding its cycles and its symbolism.
And that's the sun path.
Right.
Okay.
And you can't really tap into the power of magic.
The moon path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without first grounding yourself in the practicalities of like living in harmony with nature.
Wow, that's clicking for me. So you
Really?
can't just like pick and choose which parts of Druidry you like. It's
Yeah.
all connected.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And that actually leads us to another key theme,
What's that?
balance. It's about finding that sweet spot between the inner world and the outer world,
Yeah.
between personal growth and ecological responsibility.
So it's like a holistic approach to spirituality. It's not just about personal enlightenment. It's about your relationship with the whole planet.
That's a great way to put it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's about wholeness, like integrating all these different parts of ourselves and our relationship with the world.
Yeah.
And it's about taking action,
Right?
making choices that align with those values.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's inspiring.
it is.
Okay, so we've unpacked a lot here, like from what Druidry actually is to these bigger ideas of harmony and responsibility and wisdom and balance.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in,
it is.
but in a good way.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm already feeling like I need to read this book myself
Yeah.
to like really get the full picture.
Yeah.
But before we send our listener off to do that,
Okay.
I want to bring it back to them for a second.
Sure.
Like, how can someone actually start to bring these ideas into their everyday life?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And actually, Greer provides a lot of really practical advice on that.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
Okay, so let's start with the earth path.
Oh.
One of the simplest but most powerful things he suggests is just spending time in nature.
Okay.
And I mean like really spending time, not just like rushing through a park on your way to work,
Yeah.
but like actually sitting quietly observing the details,
Okay.
listening to the sounds, feeling the wind on your skin.
That sounds so basic.
It is, but I think I really need that reminder sometimes.
I know, me too.
We get so caught up in our busy lives that we forget to just be in nature.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like a huge time commitment.
Right.
Even a few minutes each day can make a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
You could also try like bringing more natural elements into your home.
Oh, like what?
Like plants or stones or shells.
Okay.
Things that remind you of the beauty and the power of nature.
I love that.
Yeah.
So connecting with nature on a sensory level.
Right.
And like surrounding yourself with things that evoke that feeling.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. What about the sun path?
Okay. Yeah, what about that?
How can someone start exploring like the knowledge and symbolism side of
Right.
things? Well, one way is to just become more aware of the wheel of the year.
Uh-huh.
Even if you don't like celebrate the festivals in a formal way.
Uh-huh.
Just noticing the changing seasons
Okay.
and how they feel energetically can be a really powerful way to connect with the rhythms of nature.
So like paying attention to the subtle shifts in the light
Yes.
and the temperature,
Exactly.
how plants and animals behave differently throughout the year, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
You could also start reading about Celtic mythology and symbolism.
Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, there are so many fascinating stories and archetypes
I bet.
that can offer insights into like the human condition and our relationship with nature.
It sounds like a whole world waiting to be discovered.
It is.
Awesome.
Yeah, and as for the moon path,
Okay.
one of the most accessible practices is meditation.
Oh, okay.
Greer actually includes some guided meditations in the book.
Does he really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Including the Druidic Tree of Life meditation.
I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah, but I don't really know what it is.
Okay, so it's a way to visualize yourself as a tree,
Okay.
rooted deeply in the earth, but also reaching up towards the heavens.
Oh, wow.
It can be a really grounding and centering practice. It helps you feel connected to both the physical and the spiritual realms.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to try that one.
Yeah, you should.
I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
It seems like a lot of these practices are about like slowing down,
Yes.
paying attention, cultivating a sense of presence.
You're exactly right.
Cool.
That's one of the core gifts of Druidry. It helps us reconnect with ourselves, with nature, and with the present moment.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about connecting with nature,
Right?
exploring symbolism and myth, and practicing meditation.
Yeah.
Are there any other practical steps that someone can take to start weaving Druidry into their life?
Another great way is to create a sacred space in your home.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Okay.
Just a simple altar with a few meaningful objects.
Like what kind of objects?
Like a candle or a stone or a feather.
Okay.
Anything that represents nature and the divine to you.
That's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. And you can use that space for meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Or for reflecting on what you're learning about Druidry. Or even just as a visual reminder of your connection to nature.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like a physical anchor for your practice.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And then as you learn more,
Okay.
you can start incorporating other practices.
Like what?
Like ritual or divination or energy work.
Oh, wow.
But the key is to start slowly.
Okay.
Experiment and see what feels right for you.
So not feeling like you have to follow a rigid set of rules.
Exactly.
Make it your own.
Yes, there's no one right way to practice Druidry.
I like that.
Yeah, it's about finding your own unique path. Your own way of connecting with the earth and the cosmos and the divine within yourself.
I'm loving this.
Yeah.
It's so encouraging and empowering.
It is.
It feels like Druidry, as Greer presents it, is less about following rules and more about like cultivating a way of being.
Yes.
A way of seeing the world.
You've got it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's about opening ourselves up to the wonder and the mystery of life, to the interconnectedness of all things, and to the power of nature to heal and transform.
Okay, I'm feeling really inspired.
You too.
We've covered so much ground here.
I know, it's a lot.
From the core principles of Druidry to like practical ways to bring it into your life. Is there anything else you want to emphasize before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
I think it's just important to remember that Druidry is a journey.
Okay.
Not a destination. It's a path of continuous learning, growth, and discovery.
Cool.
There's always more to explore, more to understand, more to experience.
And it's a journey that anyone can embark on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a certain type of person.
Right.
Or have any prior experience with spirituality.
Okay, good.
That's one of the things I find so inspiring about Greer's approach. He emphasizes that Druidry is for everyone, regardless of your background, your belief system, or your previous spiritual experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a welcoming and inclusive path.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It invites us to connect with the earth, with ourselves, and with the divine in a way that's both ancient and profoundly relevant to our modern lives.
Wow, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thought to hold on to.
It is. They're totally connected. Like, you can't have one without the others.
Right. It's all about that balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've got connecting with nature and gaining knowledge and exploring magic. What else kind of like ties all of this together? Like, what are the big ideas that run through the entire book?
Okay, well, harmony with nature is like a huge one, obviously.
Makes sense.
It's everywhere in the book.
Right.
Like, it's woven into every aspect of Druidry.
Okay.
But it's not just about, like, admiring nature.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with it.
Right.
Understanding how it works and, like, making choices that support it.
So it's not enough to just say, I love nature. You have to, like, actually live in a way that reflects that.
Exactly. Yeah. And Greer actually gives a ton of examples.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. Like, specific things you can do.
Cool. Like what?
Well, he talks about being more aware of where your food comes from.
Okay.
And reducing your impact on the environment.
Yeah.
And even supporting local conservation efforts.
I like that.
Yeah, it's all about taking personal responsibility, which is actually another big theme in the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Greer believes that Druidry is all about accountability. Not just for your own spiritual practice, but for how you affect the world around you.
So it's like recognizing that we're a part of nature, not separate from it.
Right.
And that our choices have consequences.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Me too. It feels very relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially these days.
Yeah, and that actually leads us to another key theme.
Okay.
Ecological wisdom.
So is that like about studying nature?
Well, it's definitely about learning about nature.
Okay.
But it's more than just like scientific knowledge.
Okay.
It's about understanding how to live in harmony with the natural world.
So it's kind of like combining spiritual practice with like a scientific understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, Greer sees those two things as going hand in hand. Like, he encourages you to connect with nature on a spiritual level, but also to understand it on a practical level.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
But okay, so we've got harmony with nature.
Right.
Personal responsibility. Ecological wisdom.
Yeah.
It feels like we're really starting to like grasp the depth of what Greer is talking about.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it's all connected.
Right.
Which actually brings us back to the three triads.
Okay.
Remember how we were saying they're all intertwined?
Yeah.
Well, like, you can't really connect with nature deeply.
The earth path.
Right.
Yeah.
Without also understanding its cycles and its symbolism.
That's the sun path. Right.
And you can't really tap into the magic.
Moon path.
Yeah. Without grounding yourself in the practicalities of living in harmony with nature.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
It all comes full circle.
It does.
Yeah. And that actually leads us to another key theme.
Another one.
I know, right?
What is it?
Balance. Like finding that sweet spot.
Between
the inner world and the outer world.
Okay.
Between personal growth and ecological responsibility.
So it's kind of like a holistic approach.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just about you.
Right.
It's about your place in the world.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And Greer emphasizes that balance throughout the entire book.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot,
Yeah.
like what Druidry actually is.
Right.
And these bigger ideas like harmony and responsibility and wisdom and balance.
Yeah.
It's a lot,
It is.
but in a good way.
Definitely.
It makes you think.
It does.
Yeah. I feel like I need to read this book myself.
You should.
But before we like send our listener off to do that,
Okay.
I want to bring it back to them for a minute.
Sure.
Like, how can someone actually start to like bring these ideas into their everyday life?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And actually, Greer gives some really practical advice.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, he does.
Oh.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so let's start with the earth path.
All right.
One of the simplest things he suggests is just spending time in nature,
Okay.
but like really spending time. Not just like walking through a park on your way to somewhere else,
Yeah.
but like actually being present in nature.
Okay.
Sitting quietly, observing the details.
Yeah.
Listening to the sounds.
Okay.
Feeling the air on your skin.
It sounds so simple.
It is.
But I think a lot of us forget to do that.
I know, me too.
We get so busy and we just don't make time for it.
It's true, but it's so important.
It is. And you don't need a lot of time either.
Right.
Like even a few minutes a day can make a difference. Yeah. And you can also try bringing nature into your home.
Oh, okay.
Like with plants or stones or shells.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, anything that reminds you of nature.
It's like a visual reminder.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, so connecting with nature on a sensory level. And surrounding yourself with things that evoke that feeling.
I like that.
Yeah. What about the sun path?
Okay, yeah.
How can someone start exploring the knowledge and symbolism side of Druidry?
Right.
Well, one way is to become more aware of the wheel of the year.
Okay.
Like even if you don't actually celebrate the festivals, just noticing the changing seasons can be really powerful.
Like paying attention to how the light changes and the temperature,
Exactly.
how plants and animals behave differently throughout the year.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
You could also start reading about Celtic mythology.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
I bet.
And it can really help you understand the symbolism of Druidry.
Okay, so it's not just about like the rituals and the practices.
No, it's also about understanding the deeper meaning behind them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and for the moon path.
Okay.
One of the most accessible practices is meditation.
Okay.
Greer actually includes some guided meditations in the book.
Oh, cool.
Including the Druidic Tree of Life meditation.
I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah, but I don't really know what it is.
Oh, okay. Well, it's basically a visualization.
Okay.
Where you imagine yourself as a tree.
Interesting.
Rooted deeply in the earth. But also reaching up towards the sky.
Okay.
It's a really powerful way to connect with both the physical and the spiritual.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to get started with the moon path.
Okay, so we've talked about connecting with nature.
Right.
Exploring symbolism and myth and practicing meditation.
Yeah.
Are there any other like practical things that someone could do to start bringing Druidry into their life?
Another great idea is to create a sacred space in your home.
Oh, like an altar?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right.
Just a small table or shelf.
Okay.
With a few objects that are meaningful to you.
Like what kind of objects?
Like a candle or some crystals or a plant.
Okay.
Anything that represents nature and the divine to you.
That's a nice idea.
Yeah, and you can use that space for meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Or for doing rituals, or even just for like quiet reflection.
So it's kind of like a physical representation of your practice.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then as you learn more, you can start incorporating other practices.
Like what?
Like maybe working with energy, doing divination. But the key is to start slowly.
Right.
Experiment and find what works for you.
So you're saying there's no one right way to do it.
Exactly.
You kind of make it your own.
Yeah, Druidry is all about personal exploration.
I like that.
Yeah, it's not about following a set of rules.
Right.
It's about finding your own unique path.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things I love about Greer's book. He really emphasizes that Druidry is for everyone.
I like that.
It's so welcoming and inclusive.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your background is or your beliefs. There's a place for you in Druidry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all about connecting with nature,
with
yourself, and with the divine.
In a way that feels authentic to you.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of practical stuff.
You have.
Is there anything else you want to emphasize before we wrap up this part of our deep dive?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Druidry is a journey.
Okay.
Not a destination. It's a path of continuous learning and growth.
So you never really arrive?
No, you're always evolving and discovering new things.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey.
And it's a journey that anyone can take.
Exactly.
You don't have to be a certain type of person or have any prior experience.
Yeah, it's open to everyone.
That's great.
And that's what makes it so special.
It does.
Yeah, it's a path of empowerment and connection with nature, with yourself, and with something bigger than yourself.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to live.
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of makes me think about how Druidry is for anyone.
Totally.
Like, it's not about fitting into a mold. It's about finding your own way to connect with nature and, like, the divine. So if this deep dive has got you even a little bit curious, imagine what you'd find by actually reading the Druidry Handbook.
I know, right?
It's like the ultimate guide.
It is.
What were some of your biggest takeaways from reading it?
Oh, man. There were so many.
I bet.
But one thing that really stood out to me was how Greer makes Druidry feel both ancient and modern at the same time.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, he honors the traditions,
Uh-huh.
but he also speaks to, like, the issues we're facing today.
Right, like environmentalism,
Definitely.
personal growth.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like some dusty old thing.
No.
It feels like it's alive and relevant.
Yeah, totally.
Like it has something to say to us now.
And he explains it all so clearly.
I know, right?
Like, he doesn't use a bunch of jargon.
No, he's very down to earth.
Yeah, it's like he's talking directly to you.
Yeah, and he gives you the tools to actually, like, create your own practice.
That's what I loved about it.
Me too.
It's so empowering.
It is.
It's like he's saying, here's the framework.
Yeah.
Now go explore.
Exactly.
Find what works for you.
And that's what makes it so appealing.
It is.
It's not about dogma.
Right?
It's about personal exploration.
So for our listener who's been with us on this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you hope they take away from it?
I hope they remember that Druidry is about empowerment.
Oh, okay.
It's about recognizing our connection to nature, taking responsibility for our actions, and cultivating a sense of wonder.
That's beautiful.
It is.
And it brings us back to that idea of balance that we've been talking about, like the balance between the earth path, the sun path,
And the moon path.
yeah, and the balance between personal growth
Yes.
and ecological responsibility.
It's all connected.
It is.
And that's what Druidry's all about.
Well said.
Thank you.
So on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Druidry Handbook.
Yeah.
But for our listener, this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's a whole world of Druidry out there for you to explore.
I hope you do.
Thanks for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, keep learning
Keep growing.
and keep seeking that balance in your life.